Hello viewers and welcome to the Shunned Experience channel with me, Jordan Robertson. In this video I will be relaying my personal experiences whilst I was one of Jehovah's Witnesses, delving into my upbringing but also my journey to where I am today and how I am no longer part of the religion. I just quickly want to add the purpose for me setting up this YouTube channel is firstly to shed light on what life is like as being one of Jehovah's Witnesses, the policies and teachings that are endorsed by the governing body who are the leadership of Jehovah's Witnesses. But I also want to give an opportunity to ex-JWs to have their say, an opportunity, a platform for them to speak out and have their say on their personal experiences and to give their opinions and to shed light on Watchtower, but also to reach out to current Jehovah's Witnesses who are thinking of leaving but haven't quite made that step yet. But going back to myself, I was born on October 9th, 1994. And as I said, I was raised as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. I've got a brother who's a few years older than me. And the structure behind being one of Jehovah's Witnesses as a member of the religion, we would attend at this point 3 weekly meetings. So we'd have a Tuesday evening meeting, a meeting on a Thursday evening, and then a meeting on a Sunday morning. And in between that, we would engage in the preaching work or the door-to-door work, or ministry as it's called, on a Saturday morning. And that's the basic structure of being in and around the religion. But in your spare time, you would have to do what's called personal study. They would expect you to prepare for each meeting, prepare for the ministry. So you really have to give up a lot of your personal time and your free time to be part of this religion. And being raised in it, I didn't know anything different. You get to a point where it becomes what you deem normal, I suppose. You don't know anything else. You think you've got the truth. And like I said, you've never really experienced anything else in life. And being raised in it was quite difficult for many reasons. Obviously, me and my brother, we went to public school. And at times I found it challenging at school because you are different. You're different for many ways. One being, my parents wouldn't allow either of us to go into religious education classes. We couldn't partake at school discos. I couldn't hang out with any friends outside of school. Christmas, birthdays, Easter, Valentine's Day was all a no-go. You weren't allowed to partake in any of those celebrations. So I was bullied a bit in my early years at school. It got a bit easier as I got older. But I never really enjoyed school. Like most kids, you just want to be normal. You just want to be like everyone else. You want to be accepted, but it wasn't always the case. And then in 2006, I was baptized as one of Jehovah's Witnesses at the age of 12. And this is quite a common theme amongst witnesses or children who are raised as witnesses. You get baptized quite early because at the time I just did what I thought was expected of me. Your parents have brought you up a certain way. You don't question it. You don't know anything else. You go along with it. But like any child, you do want to make your parents proud, which I did. So I got baptized. And at the time I thought, this is the truth. But at 12, you don't know yourself. You certainly don't know the things you're going to believe in later on in life. And you certainly don't understand the implications of teachings and policies like shunning. You just don't have any comprehension of what that entails and what it can entail later on in life. So, like I said, I was baptised at 12, and generally, I never really questioned my beliefs. I wasn't what's deemed a spiritual or very spiritual witness. The spiritual basically means a very strong, devout Jehovah's Witness. I did believe what I was being taught, but there was always a part of me that wanted to just be normal, to have a normal life, to be able to make normal friends. And it encourages you to kind of, if you want to do what's deemed normal, you've got to kind of do it in secret. You can't tell your parents, like, even the video games you play as a kid. I played some questionable games that my parents didn't know about. And even the films you watch and what you do in your spare time, what you think about, is all controlled by Jehovah's Witnesses or the governing body. They encourage you to devote every aspect of your life to this religion. And being at home, obviously, you don't really speak out against your parents. Not until you get a fair bit older. But at 12, you just go along with it. You do as expected of you. You don't question what your parents are asking of you. But I only really first questioned my beliefs when my brother got disfellowshipped. So my brother was disfellowshipped around 10 years ago. And that required me to shun him. For those of you who don't know me and my brother, we're very close. We're best mates. And we still are to this day. And I couldn't shun my brother. It really hit me hard, and I can remember the day he moved out, or was asked to move out. When my brother got disfellowshipped, my dad basically gave him a couple of months to move out. And the day he moved out and moved away from us was a very tough, emotional day for us all, but especially me, because I've got that real close bond with my brother. And I just couldn't shun him. I would still text him, we'd still talk on the phone. And I can remember when I passed my driving test, I decided to go and see him. But to do that, I had to lie to my parents about where I was going. I couldn't say I'm going to see my brother, because if they found out, or any other witnesses found out where I was, or the elders found out where I was going, I could end up being disfellowshipped myself. So the elders are basically the authoritative figure in the congregation. So unlike mainstream religion, mainstream Christianity, there isn't one elder who oversees the congregation. They have what's called a body of elders. And then in the body of elders, there is what's called a coordinator, or at the time was called a presiding overseer, is what it used to be called. So they kind of do all the teaching side of things in the congregation. They do all the talks and discourses at your weekly meetings. They take the groups for the ministry. But they also do all the disciplining in the congregation. So if somebody needs to be counselled, or a judicial committee needs to be formed, then they're involved in that side of the congregation as well. So they're actually first-hand involved in counselling, reproving and disfellowshipping members of the congregation. And I think I can speak for most, if not all, witnesses. It's just the consequences of being disfellowshipped really do scare you, because you're basically taught that if you go against any practices in the Bible, or the core beliefs, or the policies or teachings of the governing body, or speak out against a religion, or commit what they deem as wrongdoing, then your whole social network is taken away from you. And whether it's members of your family or friends, you've got to shun them. And I just couldn't do that to my brother. I wouldn't do it to a friend, but I would certainly never do it to my brother, ever. So I carried on talking to my brother secretly. That's how much control that this organisation has over you. I had to secretly talk to my brother. But he then pointed me in the direction of some videos that went out on YouTube. Now, these videos and the content of them were to do with the mishandling of child abuse in the organisation in Australia. So in 2015, the branch office members and also a member of the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses were asked to attend and questioned at this Royal Commission. I mean, I'm going to make another video about this in the future, but to briefly explain, Jehovah's Witnesses and the way they handle child abuse has never boded well for the organisation, because they have certain policies that they adhere to that entail basically not reporting child abuse to the local authorities. So if a member of the congregation claims that they were abused by a fellow Jehovah's Witness, whether that's in their family or someone else in the congregation, the elders will perform their own investigation into that. But at not one point will they take that to the authorities, and they certainly discourage family members from taking that to the authorities. They'll tell you that they don't discourage family members for taking it to the authorities, but they certainly don't like it because they believe it brings reproach on the name of Jehovah. But really, it just highlights the secrecy, the corruption and dishonesty of senior members of the organisation, that they've got these policies. And prior to this, as a Jehovah's Witness, you're always told never ever to watch apostate videos. So apostates basically are people who speak out, who have different views or challenge the views of Jehovah's Witnesses or the leadership, i.e. the governing body. You're told by elders in talks and by the governing body that apostates lie, they speak half-truths, they're deceitful, they promote hatred to the organisation, and they go as far in their videos to say that apostates are deceitful and they are mentally diseased people. So when you've had that rammed into you from a young age in terms of don't ever question what we say, to then see it firsthand isn't even come from an apostate. This is live footage, from a hearing about how they handle child abuse cases. It still to this day, I couldn't believe what I was watching, because this isn't just apostates promoting lies, which they don't anyway, but this was the governing body member. This was members of the branch office in Australia, people high up in this religion. And the things that they were saying was just phenomenal. The total lack and care for victims and the arrogance of the leadership. And that's when I first looked into thinking, something's not quite right here. But you still, because you've had years of indoctrination into this cult, and you know the consequences of shunning and being disfellowshipped, it's not as easy just to just leave, especially when you still live at home and you live under the roof of your parents, whose father is an elder in the congregation. But it certainly started there in terms of me questioning my beliefs. A, with my brother being disfellowshipped and having to shun him, and B, the way the organisation was being represented on a level, and to really get some exposure into the policies that the governing body endorses when it comes to child abuse. But on a personal level for me, back in 2013, I decided to grow a beard, and I've had a beard since. Now you might look at this and think, how is this an issue, growing a beard? But Jehovah's Witnesses have always had a stigma or a problem with brothers growing a beard. And they've got many reasons why. One being they refer to the 80s, I think, and the 70s, when you had the uproar with hippies. They viewed it as a sign of rebellion. So they wanted to steer clear of that. They don't want to be part of the world, as they always like to claim. But I remember going to a meeting with a beard for the first time. And as a young brother, as they're called in the congregation, I had privileges. So these privileges entailed the handling of the microphones, being a sound desk attendant, reading the Watchtower and book study paragraphs, and being able to get up on the platform and give discourses. And I remember getting to the meeting, and the coordinator of the body of elders in my congregation beeline for me. And he approached me and said, "You can't do the sound this evening, Jordan." And I knew what was coming, but I said, "Well, what have I done wrong? Why can't I do the sound?" And he just looked at me and did this and said, "You forgot to shave." As if basically trying to insinuate that shaving is part of being one of Jehovah's Witnesses. It's required of you. And I was fuming at this point, A, because I was being spoken down to. But if elders are to counsel you, they've got to use the Bible. So they have to show you from the Bible what it is you're doing wrong, and what you need to, what the standard is, and what you need to correct about yourself. And they try and use many scriptures where they can apply the issue with the beard, but it didn't make any sense, and it certainly didn't wash with me. So I was taken off the sound desk. I lost my privileges in the congregation. And in my local congregation of witnesses, there were a lot of people around my age. And they wanted to make an example out of me, especially to young brothers in the congregation. This is what will happen, A, if you grow a beard, but this is what will also happen if you challenge the leadership in the congregation. Because all I did was, to debate the matter. I didn't feel I was in the wrong. And I wanted some proof as to why, and scriptural proof as to why I couldn't have a beard. And they made such an issue about it. Like I said, I lost my privileges for it. And that's when I really first-hand felt the level of control by elders on a local level. On top of having to shun my brother and treat him differently for being disfellowshipped. And then to see what was going on with the governing body and what was going on in Australia with the mishandling of child abuse. So there was a lot there. But because you're indoctrinated heavily into this cult, you still believe it's the truth. And you don't want to speak out against it. A, for fear of shunning, but weirdly at the time I still thought there was something to this religion. I still thought it was different to every other religion. And I used to make excuses to say, well, it's not perfect, but you know, it's better than all the other religions out there. But also, as a Jehovah's Witness, they've got certain views on relationships and finding a marriage partner. That they believe that you can't have sex before marriage. You can't live with someone before you marry them. And whilst you're dating or courting them, as they like to phrase it, you can't go anywhere unchaperoned for fear of committing fornication, or gross sin it's called. And the longer you date somebody, the elders will monitor your situation and will kind of approach you after a certain period and kind of stick their nose in a little bit and ask your intentions. Are you going to get married? Because they believe the longer you leave it and the longer you don't get married to somebody, the more chance you've got of committing fornication. And the best way I heard, and the best way to sum it up, is it's a very sexually repressed or repressive way of bringing children up in this religion, or just living your life. It's not normal. You're going against human nature. Yeah, you know, your feelings inside, you know, as you get older. But anyway, I got married at 21. Way too young. And I had issues in my marriage. And quite early on, I decided at the time to separate. I packed some things and went to move back in with my mum and dad. And at this point, I decided to stop going to meetings, but I just became what's called inactive. So I didn't get disfellowshipped, and I didn't publicly disassociate myself from the religion. I just decided to stop going. I had an awful lot going on in my private life, but also mentally in terms of where I was at with the religion. And as I've got older, I've started to see the darker side to Jehovah's Witnesses and the governing body in particular. But after a few months of living there, at this point, I took up boxing to sort of channel my anger, and that helped for the time being. But again, that's a sport that is seriously discouraged in the organisation. You know, boxing is a big no-go. But it got to the time of year where Jehovah's Witnesses would have their annual memorial celebration. So this is where, it's the only thing they celebrate, but this is where they would commemorate the death of Jesus, and they will have a special meeting where they pass the bread and the wine. But they only do it once a year, they don't do it once a week. And it's deemed like the most important meeting of the year. And I remember my dad and my mum really encouraging me to come, and my ex-wife really wanted me to come. So I went. And then not long after that, Jehovah's Witnesses have their annual convention in the summer. And I also decided to attend that. And in between that, I decided to reconcile my issues in my marriage, to give that another go. But I also wanted to give the religion another go. But this time it was different for me. At this stage, I'm a bit older, I know a bit more about their religion. I know a lot more about myself than I did at 12 years old. And I just thought, if this is the truth, I'm really going to just throw myself into this. I'm going to be a spiritual witness. So I decided to really get involved in the congregation. I decided to pioneer. So pioneering is basically doing lots of extra ministry. And I used to commit around 50 hours a month to the ministry. And I had a part-time job at the time, because the governing body, if you can and your circumstances allow, they want everybody to take up menial work or work part-time and devote the rest of their spare time to spiritual activities, i.e. the preaching work, trying to recruit as many Jehovah's Witnesses as possible. So I did this for around 18 months. Just over 18 months. And I was miserable. I was miserable in my marriage, and I was really miserable in the truth. At this point, I would do a lot more than I used to do as a kid. I would try and study. I would try and read the Bible. I'd really try and prove it to myself and think, yeah, this is the best way of life, as they like to deem it. But I was just miserable all the time. I was seriously unhappy. Unhappy in a religion. I was unhappy in my marriage. And then seeing what went on with the Royal Commission, the way I had to treat my brother, the way I was treated on a personal level by the elders in my local congregation. The last nail in the coffin really was stumbling across certain videos on YouTube of ex-JWs. And the way they put things across is nowhere near how the governing body points out, or the way that they get their information across, the way they portray themselves. As I said before, they say the apostates portray themselves, they lie, they're deceitful, they're mentally diseased, they speak half-truths, they spread hatred amongst the organisation. But committing what they believe is one of the unthinkable things to do, and actually pick up and read apostate material and watch apostate videos online, I started to see quite quickly that they don't need to lie. The information they've got is there in front of them. It's all used by the organisation. It's just seeing it in a different light and seeing it from the other side. And I just decided at that point to leave. I'd had enough of being a Jehovah's Witness. It wasn't for me. I also decided to leave my marriage, and I started to date a worldly person. So that's the terminology Jehovah's Witnesses use for basically anyone who isn't a Jehovah's Witness or who's not getting involved with Jehovah's Witnesses. So I was disfellowshipped for that. And that entailed all my friends that I'd grown up with in the organisation, and my family, parents included, that they had to shun me. And all I can say about shunning is you don't really know what it feels like unless it happens to you. You can try and compare it to others, but because it's such an unusual thing, an abnormal thing to experience in life, the only way you can understand it is experience it firsthand, and I don't wish it upon anybody. And it's bad enough that your parents, your friends shun you, but your family and your parents, the two people who brought you into this world, to shun you just because you don't share the same belief system of them anymore. You haven't changed as a person. You've just found your own way in life. You've made your own decisions make up your own beliefs, do your own research. But that doesn't mean that you should stop talking to your friends and your family over it. There are more important things in life, but that's just not the way the governing body see it, or the way they expect Jehovah's Witnesses to see it. And to experience firsthand what it is like to be shunned, it hurts. I can remember walking through my local town centre at the time, and I would walk past the literature cart that they have, and it's that kind of look where people know who you are and they know you're around, but they just kind of they look everywhere but at you. And then if they do manage to, unfortunately, have eye contact with you, they just look straight through you, like you just don't exist. And that hurts. But apparently this is an all-loving religion. The disfellowshipping arrangement is apparently a loving arrangement by Jehovah. And I will go into that in another video in specific detail. But for your parents to not only shun you, but they've said to both me and my brother many times that they love Jehovah more than us. Jehovah comes first. And we know the arrangement. You know the shunning arrangement. You know the disfellowshipping arrangement. Jehovah comes first. And that is the level of control that this cult has upon people. And I'm not the only one. There's thousands. I mean, I don't know how many there are specifically, but there's a lot of people out there who feel exactly the same as I do, who are going through the same things that I've been through. And it does mess you up emotionally. It's something no one should ever have to deal with in life. And I can remember in 2018, my grandmother sadly passed away. And she was a Jehovah's Witness. So obviously that entailed having a funeral at the Kingdom Hall. And I knew I was going to have to go into the Kingdom Hall, but frankly I couldn't care less. It's my family. It's my grandmother. I'm here to pay my respects. But in the back of my mind, I did think, if there's a chance maybe for the religion to kind of redeem itself, or try and show me the love that they profess to have, the true genuine love that they profess to have, now is probably a good opportunity. And I remember walking in the Kingdom Hall. Barely anybody gave me eye contact. Nobody spoke to me. No one said hello to me. No one asked how I was. No one even come up to me and approached me just to say sorry for your loss. I just went to where my family was sitting, had a bit of dialogue with them, listened to the service, and then we went to the wake after, and it was exactly the same. And in this Kingdom Hall, at this funeral and at the wake after, these are people that know me inside out, that have known me for a very long time. And they just don't talk to you. Like that. Like you don't exist. And if love is the main teaching of that religion, that's not how you love people, is it really? You shouldn't do that to friends, but to get that from your own family as well, it does hurt. So I walked away from that experience and I was done. I knew in my head, my heart, that I would never return. And if there are Jehovah's Witnesses watching, then I will say this, and I'm speaking directly to them, but also others. Since being out of the religion, even though it's been the toughest 4 years of my life for many reasons, it's also been the happiest. I haven't felt happier in my life since I left this religion. I've learnt that the world isn't a big, bad, scary place like they paint it out to be. There are genuine people out there. Yes, there are bad things about the world. There are bad people, but that's just life. But to say that the world as a whole is a bad place, that there aren't genuine people out there, it's just a lie. I've experienced firsthand more love and sincere people outside of the religion than I did in 23 years inside it. That's the difference. So we are happy on the other side. And don't allow the governing body to tell you otherwise, because they don't know what it's like in the real world. They just live in this big bubble where they believe Armageddon's coming any day, that they're all going to live forever, and that anyone who isn't a Jehovah's Witness is going to die at Armageddon. I don't really know what's loving about that either. You know, for those of you who don't really know a lot about the Bible, it's not the best book, should we say. There's a lot of genocide in the Bible. And again, the main teaching of the witnesses is Armageddon is imminent. And if you're not on the right side, you're going to die at Armageddon. And I mean, for me now, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in any God. So to put me to death for not believing, or to not reply to the claim that there's a lack of evidence, I don't really want to be part of that anyway, to be honest. And I certainly don't ever want to be part of a cult that encourages its members to shun family members and friends. So I don't promote hatred towards Jehovah's Witnesses. I haven't got an issue with the 8.5 million Jehovah's Witnesses. I still love my parents to this day, and I will always love them. But it's the leadership of this religion, and this is what it does to people. And more people need to shed light upon the leadership of this organisation. And that's what I'm here for. That's what I want to do. That's what this channel is going to be all about. In future videos, obviously, I'm going to go into some more policies and teachings that the governing body put upon its members. But I also, like I said, want to give a chance for ex-Jehovah's Witnesses to relay their personal experiences by the form of podcasts. And also just provide support for them, but also to reach out as well to Jehovah's Witnesses who are still in the religion, and just to see the other side. Unlike being a Jehovah's Witnesses where your aim is to convert people, my aim isn't to convert people. My aim is just to show the other side of the argument, shall we say. To show there is another side to the governing body, to the organisation of Jehovah's Witnesses. And it is up to you what you do with that. But that's about it for this video. There's kind of a brief overview of my upbringing as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and my journey to now becoming an atheist, and now activist. Thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedules to watch this video. Please like and subscribe to the Shunned Experiences, and please look out for more future videos. Thank you.
pass by. So many times I've forgiven